Hi, everyone. This is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Cardano's doing good, making progress. Decentralization metric is starting to count down again. D is going to equal 0 here in March, and then it'll be long behind us, and the hybrid Shelley phase is over, and then we're basically completely done with that part of the project. We got the Mary hard fork. I think that's coming in February, so look for that. Going to have product update at the end of the month. We're always scaling, always building. Latest person to join the IOHK family is Lunatech. They're a European software development firm. They've been around since 1993, and they're currently working on some ETC-related things, but they're domain experts in Scala. We're going to look at them for a potential candidate to work on the DevNets for Cardano as well. Because right now it's a face-off between the Rust code and the Scala code for which one gets to be permanently part of the DevNets. So working on that. A lot of progress on Plutus, of course. Those guys are just so excited, and they're working so hard, and we're really excited to see all the other little things. Hybrid wallets are coming. Partial delegation is coming. We are right now working on our go-to-market strategy for the first half of this year for smart contracts and all the cool things that are floating along the way. A lot of commercial deals. People want to come to Cardano. They're begging us. They say, oh man, Cardano is the best ever. We want to be part of that family. How do we get some of that? And it's just the beginning. Will decentralized exchanges kill centralized exchanges? I think in the next 10 or 20 years, that's definitely a possibility. You know, it's a better business model. It's more aligned with how crypto assets work. You don't need a trusted third-party custodian. The problem is there's just front running, efficiency, fees, market depth and liquidity. So, you know, a lot of problems there. And so it's really, really hard to get a decentralized exchange working on tandem with a centralized exchange. But to be honest, decentralized exchanges have made enormous progress in the last 5 years. When I started, it was a pipe dream, but now it feels like an inevitability. Is the market crashing right now? What's going on? We have a newbie, somebody who's never been in crypto before. Welcome to crypto. Pull up a chair. Yubikey support coming. It is definitely in the plans. We just got to accelerate what we're doing with Daedalus. I would strongly advocate getting it out sooner rather than later, but it certainly is taking some time. But we'll get there. Is the Gougen upgrade still in time for Q1? Yeah, the next Gougen fork is happening in, I believe, tentatively for February, but that date looks pretty good. And that's going to add native multi-asset support. So we've been running it on the test nets, and now we're rolling it over. And that also adds the infrastructure for the extended UTXO model. And then the final HFC event will add full Plutus support. So as we mentioned, it was 3 upgrades. The first was the Allegra hard fork, which was done in December, followed by the Mary, which is native multi-asset, and then finishing it off with Plutus Core. What happens when BTC is fully mined? Hypothetically, transaction fees will cover the security of the system. Charles, update us about Cardano and Litecoin collaboration. We are going to write a lip. Are there use cases where proof of work is better than proof of stake? Currently, bootstrapping from Genesis until we deploy Ouroboros Genesis is significantly better. In fact, it's unique versus proof of stake, so you don't need a checkpoint. That's a huge advantage. And also the whole Nipapau infrastructure, that's a huge advantage. And if your desire is to aggregate a lot of computation capabilities, especially with ASIC resistance, then you're basically building a giant supercomputer with proof of work. You're not doing that with proof of stake. Fortunately, the protocols are not advanced enough to be able to take advantage of that supercomputer you're constructing. So there are definite advantages to proof of work from a certain viewpoint. But I don't think that's no longer, I no longer believe it's a security viewpoint that proof of stake provides value. Proof of work provides value. Proof of stake, in my view, is better. It's much easier to quantify the security. And in practice, I think the systems are far more secure. How do you feel about DOT using their own modified version of Ouroboros? It's great. Very exciting that DOT is doing their thing. The more the merrier. That's the beautiful part about when you build these systems, you write these papers, other people can take them, modify them, and deploy systems. It makes me very happy because if we're using similar standards, it means, for example, when they do a sidechains protocol, it's probably going to work with mine. So it's actually quite good that one of our largest competitors is technologically similar to us in certain respects. And it's not called theft, Jason. Not at all. It's actually an open source ethos. You take and you give. You always have to contribute. That's what makes the world a better place. And it's not just words that you flap around. It's a lifestyle. If either you're open source or you're not. So if people take something and modify it and go and do their own thing, and even to compete with you, you still have to accept that and think it's a good thing. And you end up getting so much more when people are working in that way. Charles, please explain how Cardano is 100x more decentralized than Bitcoin or others. How is this calculated? By those who produce blocks. So if you have 100 times the unique entities producing blocks, then we say it's 100 times more decentralized. But there are many measurements of decentralization. You can look at network propagation, so how many full nodes you have. You can look at the amount of unique development entities that are responsible for it. You can look at the funding sources and see how many unique funding sources are there. You can see at the totality of the user count. You can see it by the total amount of applications on the system. But usually when we say decentralization, we strictly mean the amount of nodes participating in the consensus process and how many unique people are making blocks. And in the case of Bitcoin, 3 to 5 usually make the same blocks again and again and again. And we consistently have 300 to 500 stake pools consistently making blocks that are unique. There's more than 1,200 registered. So I feel very comfortable in the 100x statement. But, reasonable people can have different definitions. There's no consensus in the industry of what decentralization is. What gives Cardano intrinsic value? The same thing that gives Bitcoin intrinsic value. You, the user, while the tokens can always be increased. For example, with Bitcoin, a hard fork can double the amount of tokens. What cannot be doubled are the users and the utility of the system. This is what Peter Schiff and all these other guys miss. At any time, I click a button, and actually when I was learning about Bitcoin, I did do this. I forked the code base and launched a private version of Bitcoin just to test the code and understand how things worked. So technically, I had Bitcoin Charles edition, but those tokens were worthless because it had a population of 1. And when Bitcoin had a population of 1, it was worthless. And people are finite. And people come with special skills, abilities, their own ability to work. They're adding value. So there's an intrinsic value when you have a network of people. And based upon what they can do with that network and how they can use that network is how much value you can extract. And that's what gives Cardano intrinsic value. The hundreds of thousands of people who use it, the 1,200 stake pool operators, the 10 plus entities that develop on it, and there's soon to be hundreds more that are coming.